If you're a white or blue belt, listen closely. This is the best advice from the world's top grapplers and coaches, all in one place. It will change the way you train and how you think about Jiu-Jitsu. Let's start with number one.
I always advocate start your training from the ground up. Okay, your first sessions in Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to find, to your horror, that everyone gets on top of you and you can't get out. And it's a dispiriting, crushing kind of feeling that you just have no skills and you have no prospects in the sport. So your first skill is the skill of being able to free yourself from positional pins. Most of the escapes in Jiu-Jitsu go to guard position. And so once you get someone in your guard, they're going to be looking to pass your guard and get back into those positional pins that you just escaped from. And that's just as crushing as getting pinned. You feel like every time you try to hold someone in guard, they just effortlessly pass you by. So your first two skills, you got to be able to get out of any pin and you got to be able to hold someone in your guard. So pin escapes and guard retention are your first two skills. I generally advocate the idea of learning to fight from your back first and then learning to fight from on top second. Why? Because the brute fact is, when you first start off, you just don't have enough skills to hold top position or gain top position through a takedown. So inevitably, you're going to end up underneath people for most of your training time. Your training should reflect that in the early days as a white belt. Start with the first two skills you need. They're not the most exciting. They're not sexy skills that are going to make you look like a stud in the training room, but they're going to keep you alive long enough to learn those sexy skills in the future that will make you look like a stud. Start with pin escapes, go to guard retention, and focus heavily on those two. When you start to get into offense, start with bottom position. So there's a clear continuity between your pin escapes, your guard retention, and then your guard itself. Okay? You've got different options with guard. Some of you are going to like closed guard. Some of you are going to like variations of open guard. Some of you are going to like to be seated. Some of you are going to like to be supine. Some of you are going to like half guard. As a general rule, this is a heavy generalization, but I'm going to give it to you. In my experience, most people benefit the most by starting with half guard first. I know that traditionally Jiu-Jitsu has been taught closed guard first and then all the other guards come after that. I'm a big believer in the idea of start with pin escapes, then go to guard retention, and then start with half guard bottom. That way you get a nice continuity between your first three skills and you make good progress over those first critical 6 months in Jiu-Jitsu.
And here he is, one of the best grapplers in the world. I think he has everything to win the ADCC this year, 2019. So, Craig, how did you do? Like, you were from Australia, you didn't have that level of Jiu-Jitsu, especially over there when you started.
Yep.
So,
yeah, well, it's funny actually because when I was a white belt, when I first started, I think my coach was a white belt too.
Yep.
So like obviously he'd get his blue belt and I'd get my next belt, so I'd have to wait for his promotions to get mine. So something I had to figure out early was to find information wherever you can. So obviously back then I think I started with instructional textbooks, which reading those old books like Shanji's textbook and stuff, and then obviously moved on to instructionals and stuff. But obviously you don't have elite level instruction available in your city or in your gym. There's definitely resources online available to find it.
Yeah, so you watched a lot of videos and that was the way you...
That's all I had, yeah, nothing else really.
Oh man, that's amazing. And how long it took from you from the white to blue belt?
This is funny, I barely trained until purple belt, right? So like, because obviously my gym was very small. In my city there was, I think we had one competition a year or something, but not really anyone would do it. So I can barely remember training. I trained like once, twice a week. By the time I didn't deserve my purple belt when I got it, I think. I pretty much knew nothing. And then I had to catch up from that point on, once I started traveling around the world and finding good gyms to train at.
I got it. So, but you never stopped it, right? Or have
never stopped, no.
Yeah, so that might be a great tip, right? I mean, the fact that you never stop it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good tip for injury prevention. I think a lot of guys that take a big break from Jiu-Jitsu and then come back with pressure on them to train hard take a pretty bad injury. Obviously, guys catch up, their body gets unconditioned. So for me, even if I wasn't training every day, I would still be getting in 1 or 2 sessions a week.
I got it. So guys, so one thing you did, you watched a lot of videos. Second thing you did, you never stopped it. What else? Let's try to understand here how you became who you are. Like.
I guess I really just had to put in a lot of work at purple belt. When I got my purple belt, I went to the States and got my ass kicked. So really from that point on, I had to make up for lost time. So really, at the time, the big trend in Jiu-Jitsu was like the berimbolo and stuff. So I was trying to identify what the best guys around the world were doing and trying to use those tricks to beat up people back in Australia.
Okay, and when was your first tournament in Jiu-Jitsu, you remember?
Actually, 10 years ago today, the first time I competed was as a white belt in the Australian Nationals.
So you competed as a white belt?
As a white belt, yeah.
I got it.
I think once, I think.
I got it.
That was it.
No, I got it. And then how long took from you from blue to purple?
You know what? Basically, my memories prior to purple belt, it was like something just like a casual hobby. I would train every now and then. I got my purple belt from purple to brown was like 3.5 years. I spent quite a bit of time at purple, I think, because I essentially went into it with not much knowledge at all and had to make up for a lot of lost time.
I got it.
So a long time at purple, 3.5, and then just 12 months at brown belt.
I got it. Yeah, and then like 2 years before the ADCC that you tapped Leandro Lo, Murilo Santana, 2 years before you were purple belt, right? Yeah. So what do you think was the most important thing you did from purple to that day that made you become like the Craig Johns that everywhere knows?
I guess just trying to identify trends in the sport, trying to predict where the sport was going, really, and trying to get ahead of the curve. Back then, a lot of traveling to gyms around the world. Like I remember visiting you back as a purple belt. Yep. Those trips back then were probably equally competition and training as partying, but we still got a fair bit of training in back then. Just trying to really take advantage of the access we have to some of the best guys in the world. Okay.
So guys, my note here was Craig never stopped doing jiu-jitsu. He watched a ton of videos online, and he also did competitions. So I always see this question, right? Like, should I compete in jiu-jitsu and that? I think if you want to improve faster, that's a huge help, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, I would compete all the time because I think when you have that competition coming up that you could potentially make a fool of yourself at, you put in a bit more effort training to prepare yourself for that event.
Got it. No, man, great stuff. Thanks so much, Craig.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You know, a bunch of people come up to me and they still want to start doing jiu-jitsu. What advice would you give them?
Try to absorb as much technique as you can and try to be as relaxed as you can. Don't desperately try to fight so hard. Like learn and move slow.
Move slow and relax.
That's the hardest thing to do. The hardest.
You know what I find with people, it seems like it's hard to even know that you're not relaxed. It's like the introspection. They don't even know what it feels like to relax.
Not even know they tense.
Yeah, right.
They tell you relax. They look at you, say, "What?
Yeah.
What do you mean relax? I'm relaxed."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The arms are shaking.
You feel it. And in terms of going slow, they're like, "Yeah, well, I am going slow." No, you're not. Yeah. There's a grace and elegance of movement that you can probably pick up from a lot of other disciplines. Like for me, I think that came from just learning piano at a young age. Because for I think any mobility thing, to learn how to move efficiently, you have to know how to relax. Yeah. So it's just the fact that you can, like, the body can be tense or it could be relaxed. Just knowing that fact.
Now imagine you shoulders tense.
Yeah.
Do you think you play piano well? No. Yeah, everything has to be relaxed.
I guess some of that is mind too, but just knowing that and being self-aware. But see, like, even me, approaching a thing I don't know anything about, being a beginner, you're going to tense up. Yeah. No matter, and like, it actually takes a conscious effort to think to relax. I mean, that's
massively. That's why learning things as an adult is much harder than as a child. Yeah. Like, it's very hard. And as an adult, it's like to get to the highest level, it's not possible because you will never relax the way you should.
Yeah.
So if you're doing jiu-jitsu, maybe you just started, or maybe you've been doing it for a couple months. If you're training consistently, I think aiming to get your belt in this time period is a good marker. I think that's definitely realistic. Even if you're training only 2 or 3 days a week, you could definitely get it in less than 2 years, provided you're understanding and you're making improvements in your skills. Now, I absolutely don't think about jiu-jitsu and promotions like this at all. I don't look at time. I hate promoting based on attendance. That's one of like my huge pet peeves of jiu-jitsu schools is when they promote based on attendance. I like, you know, surprise promotions and things where it's very individual to the person getting promoted, where it's like, okay, I've identified that you have made progress in this amount of time and it's time for that to be rewarded with a belt. I think that's a better way of going about it. That's just my opinion. A lot of people go based around time. Regardless, it's a good average, okay? And that's a question that I get a lot, is how long is it gonna take me to get my blue belt? I think people look at it as like a course or, you know, like a college degree. It's gonna take me 4 years. It's gonna take me 2 years to complete this course. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as knowledge acquisition and skill development that in turn will lead to the result of you ultimately being recognized and getting that promotion when the time is right. So I try to always say to take the belt completely out of the picture and focus solely on your skill development. The belt will become a byproduct. But if you think about it in this way, and this is why, again, it's a huge pet peeve of mine that gyms promote based around attendance. Because ultimately, the skill is the least important thing. Students are just gonna sign up, punch in their card every single day, 30 days pass, hey, where's my stripe? Doesn't matter what I've learned. I might not even know how to shrimp, but you keep coming to class, you show up, eventually you'll get promoted. I think it's important to see the progression of every single person. Not everybody's gonna learn at the same rate, so it doesn't mean that they should get promoted at the same rate, and that's fine. It's not a big deal, because ultimately it's a long game, okay? You plan on doing this for a very long time. So what should you know? This is also a kind of a tricky question, but I think the skill set more so that I like to see students progressing in, that shows me that they're going in the right direction, getting closer and closer to that belt, is defensive skills primarily, meaning being able to escape from pins, being able to escape from back control and things of that nature, being mounted on, and guard retention. So I tell my students when they ask me, what should I focus on? What do I need to work on? I always tell them, make yourself difficult to pin and make yourself difficult to pass. So those are the first two things that I think are gonna be most important. Because if you have those two things, the rest of jiu-jitsu is gonna come easy. Your offensive skills are going to come easy, but you have to develop those good defensive skills. So I always say, what should you know? This isn't necessarily a specific thing that you have to know, but you should focus on defense first and make yourself hard to pin and hard to pass. If you can make your guard difficult to pass, and if you do get passed, make yourself difficult to hold down, that's gonna be a huge step in the right direction if you're going from white to blue, okay? In addition to that, I'll also say, make yourself hard to tap. If you do get your guard passed, you're not getting tapped out and you're escaping and you're going back into a neutral position. And, you know, I don't really do stripes, but let's say if we look at it on a 4-stripe scale, within those first 2 to 3 stripes, if you're seeing these skills right here improving, that's what you want. Are you gonna be a master of pin escapes to where you can escape anybody's pin? Absolutely not. Are you gonna be impossible to pass? No. Are you gonna be impossible to tap? Absolutely not. You're gonna be tapping literally the entire time that you do jiu-jitsu from white to black belt. You're gonna get your guard pass many times. I get my guard pass all the time in training. I get submitted in training. You get pinned down in training. It's totally normal. So it's not to say that these things are never going to happen, but it's about understanding and showing improvement in these areas, as well as a good general understanding of the sport. You can't just focus only on defense. You know, you have to focus on offense and just all areas of the sport, passing, you know, attacking the back, things of that nature. So I like to see these skills improving first and taking away the bad habits that a lot of people have when they first start in the sport. You see it all the time when they're in their first couple of weeks of jiu-jitsu, they're mounted on, and the first thing they do is they start locking their hands behind somebody's back. They don't understand the idea of inserting frames, getting their elbows inside, knees inside, and things of that nature. So breaking bad habits is very, very important for an instructor trying to take somebody from a very beginner and start to get them into that intermediate level. So breaking bad habits is very important, okay? So I like to see habits being broken and good habits being formed, which is more probably a better way of putting it. Make yourself difficult to submit, make yourself difficult to pin, and make yourself difficult to pass. If you can do those things, I think you're in that you're in a step in the right direction and you're doing well on your way to a blue belt. Now let's talk about offensive skills, okay? So we talked about defensive, now let's talk about offensive. All this stuff, you should be comparing yourself to somebody your own size and skill level, somebody with more or less your own experience level, more or less your own size, and even age level as well. I think that's one thing to keep in mind. Offensively, there are tons of different submissions and offensive movements in the sport. Sweeps, guard passes, and submissions, okay, and working from dominant positions. And when you start looking at these things, you can get very, very systematic about it. Armbar situation, you could start breaking it down based on a million different reactions. When one move fails, how to transition to the next one, etc., etc. I focus primarily on the basic application of most moves, and I want to see a good general understanding. If you have a good general understanding of what the main submissions are and what the main goals are offensively, that's a good starting point. You understand that I have to pass somebody's guard. I have to get past their knees. I have to get chest to chest. I have to pin them down. I understand that once I get past the legs, I'm looking to transition to the mounted position. I'm looking to transition to the back. I understand that from there, I'm looking to go for submissions. What are the submissions? There's tons of different submissions, but there are 6 main ones. You have rear naked chokes, you have arm bars, you have kimuras, you have triangles, you have leg locks, and you have front headlock attacks, guillotines, katagatames, and things like that. If you can know those basic ones, you understand a basic armbar application, you understand basic triangle application, guillotine, maybe a few katagatame variations, etc., etc. I'll even add in, a collar choke for the gi. If you have a good general understanding of what the main moves are and the main objectives in a given position, that to me shows good progress, okay? Are you going to master these skills going from white to blue belt? Absolutely not. But as you progress past that blue belt level, then I think you start to get more and more in depth. You start to look at an armbar situation and you start to see, okay, when I attempt my first armbar, this fails, my training partner gives me a specific reaction, how do I deal with that? And then you can start to add to that system. By no means am I discouraging you going in and studying that stuff from the very get-go. Absolutely, the more knowledge you can acquire, the better. I'm just saying you do not want to neglect these skills for the fun stuff. You want to continue to do the fun stuff. You want to get good at submissions. You want to get good at jiu-jitsu all around, but you want to get a head start on the defensive stuff. Okay, I personally see people at purple, brown, black belt level that have zero knowledge of this stuff all the time. On a regular basis, I see people come into the gym that have been training for years, and they go in and do positional rounds against people that are less experienced than them. But because they don't have that experience and that knowledge in those bad situations, they struggle with people that are less experienced than them. That's not an uncommon thing. You want to really focus on this stuff at all times, but if you can really ingrain that in early, you're going to get a big head start. And of course, you're still learning submissions, you're still learning guard passes, you're still learning sweeps. But the offensive movements, things can get very, very intricate in those positions. And so you want to have a good general understanding and understand the basic applications first. And when you're drilling those well, and when you're seeing yourself entering into those positions often in sparring, then you can start learning based on that failure. You can start learning based on those reactions and those specific scenarios, and then you can start to develop that system and acquire that knowledge and turn that into a skill set. The main point of all of this is that this, and again, this is my opinion, but this doesn't matter, and this doesn't matter if you don't have the skills, okay? Nobody gives a what belt you are if you're terrible. So focus on skills first, and then the belt will come after as a byproduct of the skills that you have developed.
Is there advice you, Craig, you would give for hobbyists to get better?
I mean, just not every round has to be a fight to the death, Sure. I feel like you're going to get injured, burnt out that way, and you're not going to learn as much.
It's tough. I would say, just as a black belt who took jiu-jitsu very seriously for a very long time, basically when you become a hobbyist, your skill is basically slipping, your age and your skill. And so not taking stuff seriously is actually its own psychological skill of like, that it's tough. It's tough. Like it's tough in a way that is different when you're like a blue belt or something, that if you work hard and you train correctly, you're going to get much better. Here you're
looking downhill.
You're looking downhill and you're like, yeah, I guess I'm going to enjoy the art of it.
Reframe the victory, you know, like if it's a young upcoming guy and he can't submit you, you're like, well, that's a moral victory, you know? Yeah,
but then that has to happen. You have to be able to not do that to avoid the injury sometimes. Like if you want, so yeah, it's a different thing. Plus with me, just because some people recognize me, you have that probably. You guys definitely, obviously have that.
I've solved that problem.
How did you solve that problem?
Travel around, you do a seminar, anything like that?
Yeah.
It's believable that you could get submitted once.
Yeah.
But if they catch you, give them a few.
Yeah.
If people tell their friends they submitted me at a seminar, one time, believable.
Yeah.
They got me 4 or 5 times.
4 times, yeah.
You've robbed them of that.
Okay, that's pretty funny.
And guys, today Gordon is going to explain here to us one concept that he has that it's amazing. That's what every white belt and blue belt should know. So in Jiu-Jitsu. So he was explaining to me like what every white belt should focus in Jiu-Jitsu from white to blue belt, and then what every blue belt should focus in Jiu-Jitsu from blue to black belt. So can you share that, Gordon?
Yeah,
that was amazing.
So there's nothing worse than walking out on your first day and just having no sense of direction as to where you should be going. Many people walk in, they get taught a new move every day, and so here's a move today, here's a move tomorrow, and do your best with it. The whole goal of our sport is to be able to submit your opponent. Okay, picture yourself on top mount against somebody, and you want to go for an armbar, but you know that if you go for that armbar from top mount and you lose it and you end up on bottom and maybe in side control or with your back taken perhaps, that there's no way you're ever going to be able to escape. Right? The chance of you attempting that armbar drastically decrease because of the fear that you'll get held in a situation or submitted if you were to lose that armbar. So you end up just holding positions, you hold mount for the whole round, and then nothing ever happens. You kind of lose that sense of going into a match with the idea of, okay, I have to control this guy, but I also have to eventually submit him. So what gives you the confidence to open up and to go for attacks and try to go for submissions is your ability to escape both bad positions and submissions. So that if you have the confidence where you can escape, now you're in top mounted in an armbar, you can confidently go for that armbar knowing that even if you miss it, you end up bottom guard, bottom half guard, bottom side control, bottom mount with your back taken, with you in an armbar, yourself, the guy ends up in mount on you after you fail, and he gets an armbar, that you can either escape those bad positions or those submissions. Okay, so the first thing you should be looking at, which is the opposite of what most people tell you. Most people tell you how to attack first, is actually escaping bad positions and submissions. Okay, so from white to blue belt, you should focus on your pin escapes and submission escapes. All right, this will give you the confidence at later belts to be able to go in and actually attack your own submissions, knowing that if you end up in a bad spot, that you can escape and easily go back into your offensive attacking cycle. So from white to blue belt, you start by first learning how to escape and defend, and then from purple to black belt, that's when you focus on going in and attacking people. Okay, you have submissions, you have positions, guard passing, sweeps, things like that. All right, but without the ability and the confidence to escape bad spots, you're never going to have the confidence to go in and attack submissions knowing that you could end up in a bad spot.
Good. So Gordon, so kind of breaking down here, so what you did on your career, white and blue belt, you pretty much focus way more on escapes than attacks. And then purple, brown, and black, you kind of switch a little more to attacks. If you had to break down like belt per belt.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. It's not what I actually did. But when I started to train under John, I was a blue/purple belt when I started training full time with John, and my escapes were terrible. If I ever got into a bad spot, I wouldn't be able to escape. So John basically started teaching me as if I was a white belt, because when I started training with John, I was very, very bad at jiu-jitsu. So the first thing John taught me was escapes. And once I was confident that no one could hold me down and no one could submit me, that gave me the confidence to start going into attacks. Because John started us with leg locks. So every time I would try to put an ashigarami in place, I would either get my guard passed or my back taken. People would crush me or they'd take my back. And at first I was just getting held down with people past my guard or getting my back held for the round, and I was getting so frustrated that I couldn't escape. And then John was teaching us leg locks and escapes at the same time. So that I could have the confidence to go for leg locks, knowing that even if I got my guard passed, I would be able to just escape and go right back into attacking. So I did it the wrong way coming up. That's why it took me so long to progress from white to purple brown belt. But then at brown belt, when I started to have that confidence and gain that confidence, my career really started to take off from brown belt until current date.
So if you would teach the young Gordon Ryan, you would teach him escapes as white belt, focus 80% on escapes. Blue belt, you would still escapes, or you would start switching to?
Yeah. So first positional escapes, then submission escapes, and then you start to build at blue to purple belt from not only escaping, but escapes into attacks. Okay. You have to remember there's offensive and defensive cycles. You can't just escape, defend, because then your opponent stays in an offensive cycle where every time you go to defend, they just keep attacking. So you're only just defending. It's no good. You have to get into a situation where you go into escapes right into attacks on submissions. Okay, that should be, obviously you have to learn some submissions. You can't just go all the way, you can't just spend 4 years from white to purple belt focusing on, not having any submissions, but your main focus should be on escaping, defending submissions, and then transitioning into going from a defensive cycle where you're going from bottom side control or bottom mount, and instead of just escaping, going right back into your own attacks, whether it be a sweep or a submission. The guy has your back, and instead of escaping and ending up top guard, you escape and you go right into a leg lock, for example.
No, man, that's amazing. So guys, Mike is gonna give us here some tips about how to learn Jiu-Jitsu as a white belt. So when you were white belt, what would you used to do, Mike? And if you can kind of like divide this video in 2 parts, like one for the regular practitioner and one for the professional athlete, because I think they're 2 different people as well. So what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so how I want white belts to think about when they're learning Jiu-Jitsu is if you were building a building. If you're building a building, would you start building the roof? Would you start building the top of the building?
Yep.
No, you can't. It's impossible, right?
Yep.
So how would you build a building? You would work from the ground up. You would build your foundation. You would start building the first floor, the second floor, the third floor. I talk a lot with my hands because I'm always teaching Jiu-Jitsu now, so it's a bad habit. But basically, that's what we do when we're learning as a white belt. We have to build the foundation. It's so important. Every spot in Jiu-Jitsu, you will notice that the basics are the most important part of learning. Even for us advanced people, why are we able to achieve our advanced moves? Because of our foundation. We have our first floor. We're not just on the top floor. If we just started on the top floor, our building would collapse. That's how you have to think about when you're learning Jiu-Jitsu. You need the foundation in order to do the advanced moves. So when I see lower belts having success with very advanced moves, they're maybe just hitting a move, but their foundation is off, okay? So I think it's so important you have a strong foundation in Jiu-Jitsu, your fundamentals, working closed guard, working all these basic things and principles, understanding framing, understanding how to move your body, which is not gonna be natural for many people, Like for me, I'm very not coordinated. But now with Jiu-Jitsu, I'm so coordinated because 20 years of this constantly repetition, teaching yourself how to move your body, you become coordinated. So that is what you're going to learn as a white belt. You're going to learn how to move your body. Many gyms, they have you do drills like hip escapes, all these different rolls. Why are they doing that? It's to teach you how to move your body, how to start teaching your body to move in Jiu-Jitsu. So the most important thing as a white belt that you need to understand is that we're starting on the first floor. If you start up, you might have some success, but your foundation will not be good. And you won't have success long term. So you really need to focus on the fundamentals. It's funny because I'm known as a modern, new school guy, but I'm very old school how I did Jiu-Jitsu.
In the fundamentals.
And that's why I'm able to do the new Jiu-Jitsu, the new positions like barrel and everything, because they all come from the old school moves. The best old school people that do Jiu-Jitsu, if they did the modern moves, they would destroy everyone if they started doing those moves because their foundation's so good. you know.
Yeah.
So it's like a cheat code if you don't have good foundations to do like the modern moves, but you won't even be as good as the old school people if they wanted to do the moves. So what I recommend, seeing now through all the years of training, because I've been training over 20 years. So seeing now that this perspective after training 20 years, I think it's so important, the fundamentals, the foundation. And then once you have that, it'll be so easy to do any guard in Jiu-Jitsu, okay? Because what you'll see later on is there is really no guards in Jiu-Jitsu. It's just understanding the body, how to manipulate the body, the correlations of the body. That's all we see in Jiu-Jitsu as you get to the black belt, okay? So just have that in your mind. Stay patient. Don't think in your mind to jump. Like, my instructor is teaching you this, but I want to learn all these fancy things. Stay slow, build your foundation, and then build from that, okay? Because, again, you can't start building a building from the roof. You have to start on the first floor.
I agree. Oh, Mikey, so for example, looking backwards to when you were white belt, what are the techniques that you remember yourself doing? For example, in my case, I remember doing like close guard, a lot of close guard, a lot of Toriano pass. What were the techniques that it comes to your mind when you remember your white belt?
So when I was a white belt, like the things I did a lot were like scissor sweeps, close guard, double ankle sweeps.
Got it.
The muscle sweep, forcing the half guard a lot, like passing on your knees, getting the half guard, understanding how to get the half guard.
Got it.
All these small concepts are going to be the same as your black belt. The most advanced positions are actually the easiest ones once you learn the fundamentals. The fundamentals are actually the hardest things to learn.
Yeah.
Once you learn those, the more advanced things are so easy. I'll give you an example. So I just filmed my berimbolo instructional. It's like 5 or 4 parts. And the more crazy advanced things are actually the easiest parts of the instructional if you learn the first basic part of it.
You got it.
You see, but the basic part is the hardest part.
I got it.
So that's why I'm telling you, if you learn the basics very, very well, anything fancy, anything modern, anything new is the easiest thing to do.
Got it.
You see, so that is the best advice that I could give any white belt that's training Jiu-Jitsu, is to focus on the foundation, building the first floor, focus on learning body movement, and don't get discouraged if it's not natural to you. I'm telling you, I have the worst coordination out of anyone. Like, any sport I've done, I was always the worst. Okay, but with Jiu-Jitsu, you just, over time, your body learns to have this body movement, this body positioning. And how do you get that? From repetition. And another advice I would give to a white belt, don't overtrain. Okay, I'm the type of person, I'm an extreme type of person. So if I do something, I want to do it like 100%, go insane. But what happens is you'll burn out. So I think that you need to try to have a balance when you're starting Jiu-Jitsu. Because if you do it too much, you're going to get burnt out and then you won't be able to continue, right? So I think that it's very important that you don't overdo it. You stay with this mindset that you're going to build your foundation, and you stay with this way that you could steadily keep going. Because the second you do it too much and you crash and you stop training, now you can't train anymore. So it's like the example of if you're running. If you're running and you do a sprint, if you do a sprint, you're gonna be out of breath and you're gonna be like you're not, and you're gonna have to stop running, right? Opposed to if you would have ran at a steady pace consistently, which one would have you gotten farther?
Much farther. I agree.
That is the exact example that you need to think about when you start training Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, because in the end of the day, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Right?
Exactly.
No, I agree.
And Jiu-Jitsu isn't a short-term thing. It's a lifestyle. You could do this for the rest of your life. Okay, so that is why it's a long distance thing. We're not thinking of it as a sprint. You're not rushing to get to anywhere. You have your whole life. Okay, we're just constantly, steadily keeping a steady pace, and we're just gonna constantly improve like that.
Man, that's awesome. Like, guys, all the instructional videos from Mikey is at bjjfanatics.com, so make sure to check that out. And thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you, Professor.
Awesome.
What wisdom can you provide? Like, say you were tasked with coaching a beginner, a hobbyist beginner. How would you help them become good in a year? What would be the training regimen? What would be their approach, mental, physical, in terms of practice to Jiu-Jitsu?
I mean, honestly, picking safe training partners and trying to understand the positions and not just freaking out. Like, you might escape if you freak out, but you also might be stuck in something and you injure yourself. So it's like, I think if you can, it's just about longevity. You know, like if you can find a pace to train at and a like sort of intensity and the right people, you could potentially train 5 years without injury. It's really about how you move. If you are always moving in an explosive way, eventually you're going to do that from a position in which you can't move, and then something's going to tear. And you also want to be able to trust training partners to not go too crazy, inflict too much pain. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think I've managed to avoid a lot of injuries because I just never roll too athletically, explosively. I think I'm probably incapable of moving at that rate of speed.
So that's part of it is the way you move, but I guess you also don't allow anybody to put you in a really bad position in terms of hurting you.
I let them put me in bad position, but I try to stay relaxed at all times. You know, that's the key here is like, I mean, yeah, obviously you got the cheesy, keep it playful, but it's like, if you can remain calm in bad positions, that is a skill. That's your confidence, not in yourself, but that the other guy's incapable of submitting you. That's the ultimate confidence. You can give them whatever you want.
So the thing you want as a beginner is to focus on minimizing injury by relaxing, by not freaking out.
Yes, keeping it at a pace so you can understand what just happened.
The thing is, like, how do you know if you're freaking out or not as a beginner? It feels like
if you're panicking.
Yeah, that's a good. If you're, I mean, I see a lot of beginners kind of starting to breathe hard, they tense up. That's probably underneath that is panic.
Yeah, if you can make someone panic, you'll fatigue them. It's the same. It's like even if you're higher level and you're worried about getting your guard passed, it's the panic that leads to fatigue and your guard retention. But if you're so flexible, you remain calm, I think it's because you're not panicked.
Fear is the mind killer. But also, you have one of the more innovative games in Jiu-Jitsu history. How'd you develop that? How do you continue throughout your career? How were you innovating? What was your approach to learning and figuring positions out, figuring submissions out?
I mean, financial motivation. If you can hit moves that no one else knows how to do,
yeah,
you can sell those instructionals. But also it keeps it interesting because it's like, I mean, it can get stagnant and boring, you know? Like a lot of people get to blue belt, they're good at one thing, they only do that one thing. I think it's finding creative ways to beat people. And sometimes creativity is in how they respond to it. So if you can find a humiliating move to do to someone, well, not even necessarily humiliating, but a move that is unexpected. When you get hit with something you don't expect, I think that is sort of really one of the most fun aspects of it. You know what I mean? Like, you train to stay better than the people you're better than. That's what keeps you in the game. And finding creative ways to beat those people is some of the most entertainment.
100%. And then from your own sort of development with Jiu-Jitsu, mate, obviously you've got very good at quite a young age with not decades of training. And there's obviously discussions around, you know, drilling, not drilling, live training, and so on and so forth. For you, like, what are the key things that you apply in your practice and in your training that have made you as good as you are, do you think?
For me, I think it's just having a goal every session. If drilling, I think different people thrive in different situations, you know? Some people like to drill because technique gets stuck in their brain. Other people can get shown something once and they can do it. So I think it's finding what works best for you. For me, let's say when I was training with Jozef, he would show me a new pass. I would drill it once on him, and I would go into training and I would just try and do it in training. And every single round, I would try and force myself to that position. I would try and do it. Other people, maybe they need to drill it for half an hour, then add a little bit more resistance, and then do specifics from there, and then start doing it in full sparring. If that works for them, that's what works for them, you know? But in my head, it's like, if he shows me this and I can't get there in a round, why am I going to spend so much time developing it if I can't get there? Mm-hmm. So it's like a body lock pass, you know? But I never end up in a body lock pass. So why am I going to spend so much time developing body lock if I'm not going to go there? Whereas like a camping pass or north-south passing, when someone first shows it to me, then I find myself in a position where it's there, and now I can start working that, then it improves my game and it gets bigger. Maybe the body lock will come in later on, but like at the minute, I never see an opportunity to go for that part. So why am I going to sit there and drill it and do specifics from there and get super good at it if I can't get there? Or if I feel like it's not part of my game, you know? Like Jozef would show me a few things. I'm like, okay, I can apply this right now, and like this is going to make me better in short term, and then like once I've done that, maybe now I've come into another wall, and now I can tackle that wall as it comes, you know. Like Owen Flanagan says this a lot when it comes to leg locks. He'll like spend 2 weeks doing one thing. If he doesn't like it, he'll stop doing it, and then like, or he'll, if he does do it, then they give him a different reaction. Now he spends another week tackling this thing, and then basically just constantly developing your game like position by position. Obviously you can't get everything better at once, but it's like I'll go in this week, for example, okay, I want to work a knee cut pass, right? I want to work sitting in a split squat, applying pressure, cooking people, making them tired, right? So now I'm going to go and do that for maybe 2-3 weeks. Then if I find certain people are doing things that are like I'm struggling with, or I'm getting these different reactions, I'll ask Dima, I'll ask Owen, I'll ask other people, I'll ask Taylor, and then I'll be like, okay, and then they'll give me these options, and I'll go try them, and then whichever I prefer, I'll stick to that, and then I'll get good at that, and then I'll move on once it's working, you know? I think that's the best way for me. That's the way I've improved a lot. And just even, honestly, when I was a blue belt, I wasn't thinking like this, you know? And I was just training in a room full of good guys, and I was just getting better. Like, I was just training with them, and I was constantly just picking up what they were doing, and like, just taking their techniques during the round, you know? Like, he would sweep me away, and I'd be like, oh, right, I couldn't stop that, you know? Then I would do it, he would do it again, and then I would think about ways that I can stop it, you know? And that during the round, then I would start lifting his leg, and okay, if he tries to wrestle up and I pick up his inside leg, now he can't heist onto his knee, he can't sweep me, but then he starts kicking me over and switching into a single leg X. Okay, now this is nothing I need to worry about, you know? And then I can start like dismantling it in that way, you know? Rather than go in and like, oh, I'm gonna go do 3 weeks specifics from this position, and then like you go into live rounds. If you did an armbar from out and then you can't get to mount, why have you just what good is that armbar gonna do for you? You know, you have to be able to get there first. I think it's like the progression of your game progressing. Obviously, if you're early on in the career, you don't really know what your game is. It takes time to develop what you feel you're good at, which I think came naturally to me. You know, I always wanted to be able to move fast. I always wanted to be on outside. I always wanted like kind of crazy scrambles. It always made me enjoy jiu-jitsu, and it made other people enjoy my jiu-jitsu. And that's what my end goal was, right? I like the fact that people want to watch me do jiu-jitsu, and when I'm doing like crazy back takes, I'm like, and I take their back, I'm like, that was sick, you know? And that's what I do jiu-jitsu for. I don't do it to like, some people find it enjoyable to go sprawl on someone, they get super tired, they give up and they pass into the mount. Some people find that fun. I don't, you know, I don't want to sit on someone and cook them and then eventually mount them. I kind of want to like pass to the outside and like keep the movement going and like breaking them mentally that way, you know? So I think it's just what you prefer, you know? Taylor Pearman, he loves just sitting in the split squat, sprawling on you, cooking you that way, like clearing your frames. But for him, he finds that fun, you know, and he gets them out, he mother's milk you, he bullies people like that, you know? Whereas I prefer like crazy outside passing, trying to jump on your back, trying to jump on crazy bolos and stuff like this. So I think it's finding also what you find enjoyable rather than like what's the most effective. Because that's why do jiu-jitsu, right? Do you do it to be the best? Then fine, okay, you can go the strategic approach. You could probably follow Gordon. He probably has the best way to get the best at jiu-jitsu. But if you do it for fun, find out what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy playing guard, why play guard? Start wrestling, start going on top, start passing, you know? It's like, and if you enjoy playing guard, get good at playing guard, you know? So it's like, enjoy jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu. Don't try and make it, it's like this whole strategic like thing about you have to improve a certain way forever, you know?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And do you still do a lot of like instructor-led classes then? Because I think that's always like the slight barrier with that, isn't it? Because if you go into the classes, obviously you're being taught like a broad range of techniques that your instructor is going to be sort of teaching as part of their syllabus or anything else. And I know when Kit Dale came on the podcast, he was saying that he would pretty much just not go to those types of sessions or just sit out, and then he would look for the live sparring when he could apply the sort of stuff that you just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, for me it's different because obviously the gym I train at, I've always been like a part of that from the start. So if David, for example, is teaching a class and I'm in the corner, he'll let me do what I want, you know? If I want to drill a certain technique, if I want to work a certain thing with Eddie, I can do that, you know? And like, I think those classes, you kind of have to maybe take your own initiative and like if I'm teaching a knee cut, for example, right? And someone wants to do a slight variation from there that they find works for them, I'm not going to stop them from doing it. If anything, I'm going to go over and give them tips on how to do it better, you know? I'm not against like, if I taught this guy a body lock and he weighs 65 kilos and he doesn't think he's gonna be able to body lock anyone, and he thinks maybe a tight waist knee cut's gonna work better and he wants to do that instead, like I'm not gonna go like, oh, you can't do that. You know, certain old school like professors and like Brazilians like, no, you can't, you have to do the technique I just showed you. I don't really care like that. You can kind of drill what you want as long as you're drilling it correctly. And that's just all I care about. As long as you're doing the technique right, you can do what you want. Take your own development into your own hands as well. Me, I used to train, my main trainer was Elliot for a long time. He's injured now, so he doesn't train too much, but we used to sit there for hours on end just drilling, you know? Like, I think the main question I get a lot in training is like crab ride, you know? Like, I have pretty good crab ride. I take a lot of people's back from crab ride, and it's like, people are like, oh, how'd you do crab ride? How'd you get to the crab ride? I'm like, bro, you don't want to know. I was like, Elliot's iPad has got a 3-hour clip of me and him sitting there doing crab ride specifics in Apex for 3 hours. And the next day, we just couldn't walk. Our neck and our back was fucked. We just like, we just sat there. We did crab ride specific one for one for 3 hours. And then we'd like watch the tape after, and we'd be like, we'd watch some like Espen clips and other clips of people, Levi Jones, who were good at bolos. And like, now my crab ride immediately switched when I went to no-gi. Like, I didn't find it was like a massive difference. Obviously, because when I was doing it, it was in the gi. When I went to no-gi, I felt like it transitioned pretty easy because I understand how to take the back from there already. So now it's like super easy. But it only took that like one session. Admittedly, it was 3 hours. It was horrible. But like after then, it's like crab rides become super easy for me now. Like whenever anyone has a question from there, like getting the answers like super easy. It always comes to me quite naturally from there, you know? And now I don't get bowled that often. So it's like, it was worth it. Now my bowler's pretty good. And it's like, for me, I find that entertaining, you know? I find them like crazy back takes and like scrambles from there is like...
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, exactly. When you see someone do a crazy crab ride, like I don't know if you've seen Levi Jones versus Oliver Tarza. He does that crazy bowler where he's just like climbing his way to his back. And I'm like, it's like a 10-second sequence. He's like starts on his ankles and he just climbs and crawls all the way to the back. I'm like, that's beautiful. That is just sick jiu-jitsu, you know? And that's kind of what I want to have myself, you know?
Yeah, man, that's a really cool way to coach, isn't it? I think we talk often about like the difference between like teaching or instructing jiu-jitsu and coaching jiu-jitsu. And I think what you've talked about there is just coaching, isn't it? Because it's identifying people's strengths and weaknesses and allowing them to flourish in those areas.
Because no one's the same, are they?
No.
Body types are all different. The way we process information is different. The way we apply ourselves are different. And the way we learn is different. So
if you've got old man hips or not.
Exactly. You guys know who Shea Montague is? You heard of this guy? Shea Montague, right? He's a rooster weight, right? He won everything at brown belt, like literally won the worlds, Brazilian nationals, everything like this. Bro, he can put his knees into his armpits with his back flat on the floor. Bro, I cannot do that. Like he'll be laying on his back and both knees will go under his arms. Bro, Parsons guard is basically impossible.
Yeah.
How do you get in between the space between his knees and the chest if his knees literally goes
if
past his chest,
no
right?
Space,
Yeah. Like, I can't do that. Yeah. So if I went to teach him, you're gonna wrestle up. Why?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
Why? Oh, he has the best guard retention I've ever felt because his knees go to his chest. Same with like Elliot, my other friend. He's so flexible. Play to your strengths, right? And I have a guy like obviously Faris. He's one of my other training partners. He's super strong and he's really good at wrestling up and standing up. I'm not gonna tell him to go on his back and start playing lasso and start like inverting through to reverse lever and stuff like this. No, wrestle up. Because that's what you're good at, you know? Play to your strengths, as you guys are saying. Like, your body type works for that way, and you got to find out what works for your body type. If you're super strong and you're slow, I'm not going to tell you to outside pass north-south. No, sit in a body lock and bully the people, you know? Because that's what's going to work for you, right? So I think that's also an important factor.
Yeah. There's a million ways to win, isn't there? There's a million ways to win the jiu-jitsu.
That's the beauty of it.
How to get better.
I think being consistent, like find a schedule that you can consistently train. Maybe it's like 3-4 times a week, or even a little bit less. Just be consistent over the years. I think too often people are like, oh, I want to get really good really fast, and it's like definitely takes a long time to get to where you want to be.
What about what you're doing during while being consistent? What kind of stuff you're working on?
So honestly, I think one big thing for me, something I actually started doing once B Team was formed, was filming all of your rounds and then watching it every day, because you can see what specific problems you're having, and then you can base your positional rounds around those problems.
Like, was it the way that you learned, or how did you learn, basically?
If we're talking about like the same volume of training, I would definitely say I was fortunate enough that I was introduced to like a lot of very like intelligent means of training very early on. Mm-hmm. So my original coach in Nanjing, he's under a guy named Rob Bernacki, and he's out of Nanaimo in Canada. Mm-hmm. He has a gym called Island Top Team. And so he was like very heavy on a lot of like concepts in jiu-jitsu. So a lot of the way I approached training it really stemmed on that. And at a similar time, when I had no responsibilities in school, I was watching a lot of tape and I was listening to a lot of podcasts. So this is when BJJ Mental Models, if you're familiar with this podcast, started kicking off. And gave me a lot of time to really listen to a lot of these ideas. And the guys who started mental models, one of them is black belt under Bernanke, Matt Kwan. And so it really introduced a lot of these ideas and kind of exposed me to them more after having already been somewhat familiar to them, just because of my coach really teaching that. But then being able to go into more depth. So like, for example, he talks about like different ways to interpret information in jiu-jitsu. So he's he has this thing called alignment theory, which is basically everything can be broken down into posture, structure, base. And then he defines these things. It's not just like, this is something I really like, where it's like, if you want to think about a problem, right, things have to be fairly clear for you to actually like derive things from them and then come to conclusions. So for example, it's not like you hear this a lot where it's like, oh, you want to be in good base, but what does it actually mean, right? It's like it's hard to define. So he like came up with definitions for all these things, and so it makes it easier to think about. So for example, like base is, well, at least his definition at the time was, your base is your ability to generate and absorb force relative to your goals. And this is a very like easy definition. So you can think about base more creatively now, because now you can fit that into so many different positions. Base isn't just being on top and being stable. Base can be, you can be on bottom playing guard, but if you have a good ability to carry weight and then like exert force, this means you're in good base. Similarly, like you can make different analogies, right? If I'm a sprinter, there's optimal base for sprinting, but that doesn't mean it's the optimal base for everything, right? Similarly in jiu-jitsu, it's like, this is how you can kind of take an idea and carry it over to a bunch of different areas. So stuff like that was really helpful for me. So I think thinking about things that way, and then obviously not having many obligations. I mean, being 15 years old during the pandemic, so really didn't have much I had to do. I didn't do much homework. So
when you see jiu-jitsu in a lot of the videos like on YouTube, for example, like it's kind of like, it seems like a little bit of like a meathead culture with like wrestling and stuff like that as well. But then you seem to take a lot more of like an intellectual approach to jiu-jitsu. Do you think some people just do it on kind of like a instinctual level? And you think,
I mean, not everyone. I definitely think there are a lot of people who are very like intelligent about the way they approach it, but it would be, there's no denying that there's definitely that culture of being like being very strong and like kind of just like trying harder, you know? I mean, this and this. I mean, I might be mischaracterizing, but isn't like Pohada like just like this kind of idea of like, oh, you just want to go. So I mean, I definitely think there's something to be said and something valuable about doing stuff like this, but then there's also, you have to use it intelligently. This can't be everything you're going with. You know, so I think like balancing the two, it's like you can't be like only toughness. And I think of this as like an idea that I really liked a lot was, actually I think I got this, it was like a distinction between growth and performance. And like, I believe I got this from a YouTube video talking about Tekken or like Street Fighter, where I was like talking about the difference between the two. And it's like, some people, if you're too much in a growth mindset, so like, it was like honers versus innovators. I think this is like a similar analog where some people, they just hone the same skill set over and over and really try to refine everything. And then some people, it's not so much about refinement, it's more about innovating with new ideas and trying to bring new techniques in. And so I really think ultimately in jiu-jitsu, it's about balancing the two. And it's a bit of a deviation from like going hard and like a meathead culture. But some people, it's like, I think, how can I connect this back where it's important to balance the two. And I found, like, for me at least in my jiu-jitsu, it's like basically when I'm about to compete, it's performance based, and that's really refining what I already have. Versus when I'm in a more of a off season or there's no immediate competitions coming up, then I'm in a more growth mindset where I'm going to be trying to on-take new information. And there are a lot of characteristics for each of these like mindsets, right? So if I'm more performance oriented, I'm going to be a lot more intuitive with the way I approach my training. I'm not going to think too much about, okay, what's happening in this position? What are some, I'm going to do what I know, and I'm going to try to do that in a very timely manner. Versus in a more of this growth mindset where I'm trying to on-take new information. I'm going to work at a slower pace. I'm going to think more consciously about things. And this isn't necessarily conducive to like winning, but it's going to help me really think about what I'm doing and then on-take new ideas. And then I feel like some people, they just do one too much. You know, there's some people that are just like, they just drill and they just play around with stuff, but they don't really take the time to refine it to the degree where they can use it competitively. But then there's some people who have a game that they just stuck to, and that's all they do. And so I think ultimately for me, I was very intentional about this, where I was just, I was very like, okay, I'm going to spend X period of time doing like this performance oriented approach, and then X period of time going with growth. And it's not like, I'm not so systematic in the sense I'm like, okay, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. It's more like a feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I feel like I feel pretty good with where I'm at for my skill set for this certain comp. So now I'm just going to focus on refining.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, just how I see it is like a lot of people in most gyms, they just kind of want to come in, do their rounds, and get out, basically, right? Like the way the jiu-jitsu class is structured. But you seem to have this whole other level of like learning, basically. So, so when you're training, for example, you don't kind of do the traditional like 30 minutes of class, positional sparring, then just rolling, obviously, right? You approach it in a whole different manner.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. Because
of course, yeah.
I mean, jiu-jitsu is like, to different people, it can be different things. I think this is one of the things that makes a hobby, I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is special, like whatever hobby you're doing, it that takes you away from, it can give you a means to socialize, can give you a means to stay fit, can give you like something to think about, right? It's like whatever you want it to be, it can be this for you. I'm not saying everyone has to approach it exactly the way I am, right? But for me, the reason I enjoy it is because it kind of gives me this like intellectual playground where I can think about all these different ideas in this way. Right? I mean, obviously there's the bonus of, okay, I can stay somewhat fit, and then I can also socialize. Like, I mean, most of my friends, I mean, are met through jiu-jitsu. I don't know how I would have known them otherwise. So yeah, but I think that's what I really enjoy the most. So like what you're describing, where it's like this kind of approach. Like I was fortunate enough again, where fairly early in my jiu-jitsu journey, like I was encouraged to watch instructionals, and even during class, once I got to a certain level, my instructor was like, man, you can drill as long as you don't interrupt the class, just drill whatever you want to drill. You can like, they're very open discourse about a lot of these new ideas, and he was very open to new information. So it really was a great environment for me to actually like really try to learn a lot of new things.
Yeah. So if we're gonna discuss, like, if you're gonna tell, like, explain this to an idiot.
Same, bro. That's the reason I'm doing jiu-jitsu, you know?
So like, in terms of like when you're doing training, for example, so let's say, what would that look like in a typical, let's say, week or month, and how you're trying to do it, basically? Is it like mostly positional sparring? Is it I'm studying this and I'm gonna try and do this during a roll?
Yeah. So I mean, for example, like right now we're leading up to, for me, CGI, Kenta, ADCC, right? So right now we're still far enough out where it's not going to be like super performance oriented. We're still working on the skills that are going to be, or what we think is going to be appropriate for the rule set, but then slowly incorporating rounds, maybe like a shorter volume throughout the week of, okay, now we're going to do a competitive ADCC round. And like, this is something I think is very important. And it's like, you need that period where you get to practice these techniques, but then you need a period where you can actually use them in a competitive situation. So right now it's going to be more oriented towards ADCC, and that's the goal. But then when we're outside of that, man, I might just do something because I think it's cool. Yeah. Right. So for example, like a lot of stuff I was playing with before I came into like this camp is like no-gi omoplatas, and then using that and how I can play with that. Just because I found it interesting, I think it's cool. I don't think it's like mixing omoplata with crucifix and K-guard, and then like what Levi does in terms of like Xanadu guard, and this is just because I find it interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of my progress in jiu-jitsu is led by my own curiosity more than actually trying to win. You know, I mean, like now I do think about, okay, what's the strategy for me to win a match, right? But it's still like largely guided by, okay, I think this is pretty interesting. I'm gonna try to play with this.
Yeah. So it's curiosity and the fact that you actually you had time to study, and you like. Would you say you like to study as well?
I mean, I like to study if I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I think it's honestly about like finding what piques your interest. I do think. I mean, sometimes it can be. I'm not going to tell anyone you should sit through like an 8-hour instructional and bore yourself to death. I watch that.
Some people hate it, but
I watch those videos on at least 2 times speed. Yeah. By the way.
Oh,
but,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all know who we're talking about. But, but basically, I mean, I do that if I think it's necessary, right? But I try to be fairly introspective with where I think I need the most improvement. And so I'm like, okay, like for example, I feel like my supine guard is bad. Okay, then I'm going to work on my supine guard. And then what are some areas to start? I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult to find.
Yeah.
There are plenty of instructionals talking about this, plenty of practitioners who do this very well.
Yeah.
And so whatever piques your interest, go down that path. You know, maybe it's not the most like optimal path. Like maybe you do something and it's like, oh, you kind of come to the conclusion where it's like, okay, it's not that good, but I mean, then you pivot, right?
Yeah. So regarding the introspection as well, like you you're thinking, oh, maybe I need to improve here, maybe I need to improve there. Would you say you can definitely like accelerate that via having someone else looking at your rolls as well, or did you start doing this like by watching your own rolls first?
I think it's most important to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with having like a coach help you, and I think it works very well. But in the long term, you want to be able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be able to not rely on someone else, because otherwise you're going to be more or less a reflection of them and not your own practitioner. I think that there's definitely a time and a place, and it's not necessarily wrong to like really take out some stuff from like an instructor, but that can't be all.
You can't just be getting like spoon fed the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think this. I mean, if you're just doing it for fun, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to get like, I think, as good as you can, you're going to have to, it's going to be a lot of you doing the work, you thinking about, okay, what am I going to do here? What do I think works for me? Because again, like I'm sure, I mean, you've trained for long enough to realize this, where it's like something that works for person A won't necessarily work for person B.
Absolutely.
Right. And then also thinking about why that is the case. And that's going to help you become a better instructor.
Yeah.
And it's like ultimately becoming, your own jiu-jitsu mind, where you're able to think about these problems critically and then derive certain solutions, and then you're able to like, I don't know, make everything make sense a little bit more. So I mean, this is I don't know, I feel like kind of the path that I went down, especially like really trying to get as good as I can, just because I thought it would be cool. You know, like I signed up for my first trials when I was an orange belt.
Yeah.
It got delayed till 2021, 2022. But I thought it was always fun, you know?